If you don't plan, you're stupid.
Hello, you're listening to If You Don't Plan, You're Stupid with estate planning attorney Andy Rosenberg. Andy is the founder of the Law Office of Andrew G. Rosenberg, PA, and a trusted advisor for families planning their future. I'm John Clements, and today we're talking about one of the most powerful and most misunderstood documents in estate planning, the durable power of attorney. So first of all, before we get into that, Andy, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks, John. I'm glad to be here, and this is a pretty important topic today, my friend.
Yeah, well, that's what we talk about around here. I'm glad you're here to talk about it with us and enlighten us. So let's just dig into it. What is a durable power of attorney? Like, I hear that phrase all the time, but what is it, and how is it different from like a medical directive?
So yeah, there's a big difference, obviously, but let me not obviously because you're asking the question, but
That's okay.
So here's how it works. Again, I want to reiterate, we're talking about Florida here. A durable power of attorney is basically what happens if you become disabled or incapacitated and you can't handle your financial affairs. If you don't have anything in place whatsoever, we're going to have a guardianship. We talked about that in a prior podcast. What happens if you don't, the Britney Spears situation and that whole mess in California. We try to avoid that. At least I try to avoid that with my clients. So if we have a properly executed durable power of attorney and you do become disabled or incapacitated, that will be used and we will avoid the court system, that guardianship court. Now that's what a durable power is. At least in Florida, there's a separate document called a healthcare surrogate. And that document is meant for the same situation where you're disabled or incapacitated and you can't make your healthcare decisions. So we got a durable power of attorney if you are disabled or incapacitated and you can't make financial decisions. And then we got the same thing where you're disabled or incapacitated and you can't make healthcare decisions. That's the healthcare surrogate. Those are the two big distinctions. Now, can I elaborate a little bit further on this?
Absolutely,
topic?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to bore everybody out there, but it's kind of important. So I like to explain that there's a difference between a durable power of attorney, a general power of attorney, and a limited power of attorney. And I just want to go over that for a minute so it makes sense. So a limited power of attorney is exactly what you think it is, where it's limited. So let me give you an example. Let's say my wife, Debbie, and I go on vacation and we have our house up for sale. And God forbid, we get lucky enough that when we're on vacation that the house is, someone's interested and they want to enter into a contract. So with a limited power of attorney, I can name my kids as an example as my person or attorney or agent in charge, and they would have the authority, the limited authority to sign a contract and to deal with the real estate. That's a limited power of attorney just for real estate. It could be for almost anything. So that's one type of power of attorney. Then we have something called a general power of attorney, which, John, sounds like what it is. A general power of attorney is a power of attorney to do everything generally. You can do everything and anything with a general power of attorney. Here's the difference, though. So we got the limited, which we just talked about. Now we got the general, which we just talked about. Now we're going to talk about the durable. The difference is that the durable power of attorney is a general power of attorney, but will continue to work if you become disabled. If you have just a general power of attorney and you become disabled, it ceases to exist. It stops. It's not allowed to be used. If you have a general durable power of attorney, if you become disabled, it continues to work. That's the difference. And in Florida, I'm digressing a little bit, but it's important to understand the history of it. In Florida, up until I want to say October of 2011, we had a great situation with the durable powers. It was called a springing power of a durable power of attorney. And what it means is that you sign this durable power of attorney and it's there for you. And if you ever become disabled, and we have doctors that say, hey, we have notes saying that they are now considered to be disabled, then the durable power would spring to life, right? It's called a springing durable power of attorney. We had that up until October of 2011, if I'm correct. Then after that, what happened was the banking lobby, the investment community, et cetera, said this is too hard to monitor. It's too difficult. There's too much liability on our side. We don't like this thing. So they have a huge lobby. They went and they got the legislature that changed the law in October 2011. And so now what we have, in my opinion, is not as good, but what we have is not a springing power of attorney where it springs to life when you do become disabled. What happens is it is now, as soon as you sign that durable power, it's up and running. And if you become disabled, it continues to work. So it's very powerful. So you better be careful if you create this durable power. Make sure you, number one, trust the person that you're naming. Yeah. And number two, keep that durable power original somewhere safe, just to be safe. Because if that person got that document and you didn't trust them anymore, they could literally take that and go to the bank accounts and liquidate. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, I want to dig into that in just a little bit, but I do want to ask one follow-up question. With all these different kinds of power of attorney, first of all, thank you for explaining that, because I had no idea. But I might respond with, Andy, well, that's great, but like, I'm young. Maybe I don't own a home. I'm not going on vacation. You know, I'm not going to die soon. Why do I need a power of attorney? I don't need that.
Because, and this is a huge problem that I have with just people in general. People procrastinate. People think that they always have tomorrow. And then there ends up being no tomorrow. So listen, if we had a crystal ball and we could say, yeah, okay, I know I'm going to be incapacitated at this age, that's when I'm going to do it. Great. But we don't. We don't have crystal balls. I'm going to tell you a quick story to give you an example.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Literally last Friday, I got a phone call from someone out of the blue. It was the daughter. She was an adult, in her mid-20s, I think. And it happened to be, it was the daughter, it was her uncle, and her mother, who happens to be the ex-wife of the dad. And so here's the scenario. Dad is 52 years old and had a massive stroke and is in the hospital and is unconscious and on life support. And we're not sure if he's going to get better or not get better. So the daughter, his brother or uncle, and the ex-wife were all on a phone call with me, and they're all asking me, what can we do to take care of this, to fix this? And I look at them or talk to them, and I basically say, there's nothing we could do. It's too late. Because once it happens, there's nothing we could do. That's why you asked the question, why should, when's the proper time? The proper time's now, when you're not having issues. It's just like life insurance, right, John? When you want to get life insurance, you can't because it's too late because you got an issue. So when do you need to get this stuff? You need to get it when you don't need it. So, but this is something that everybody needs. So everybody, including all sorts of different age groups, need this. So let me give you an example. Okay, John? I have lots of clients that have kids that are 18 and go off to college, but they go off to college, and then what happens if they get into a car accident, or what happens if they are unable to really manage their finances and they need help from mom or dad? What happens? Nothing. They can't help them. The parents can't help because the kids are an adult at 18, so they need to have a proper legal document for financial concerns, which would be that durable power of attorney. So I have all my college kids. I have them, hopefully, if the parents know, they're supposed to meet with me so that we can create a durable power of attorney to help the kids and the parents be able to communicate and handle things with all the financial affairs, and then also a healthcare surrogate so that if something were to happen, they could deal with the doctors and the doctors legally could talk to them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I have a 16-year-old, so he'll be going off, on his own in a couple of years. That's a really good point to think about. So thanks for bringing that up. And then my follow-up question would be, what happens if you don't have that power of attorney in place? Like, what you said, there's not much you can do, but what does that mean?
Well, so in that example I just gave with the 52-year-old that ended up having a stroke and is on life support, what can be done? Guardianship court, unfortunately. which we've talked about in a prior episode. I mean, basically, the only way that things can get done is through the court system at that point. So, and what's the problem with guardianship court? They're bogged down, so they're very busy, obviously. You have to have attorneys involved, which means it's going to get expensive and it's going to take time to get things through. So it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I think that's the right word for it. And, as I talk with people about estate planning and probate court and all these things, like, you're basically trying to remove that potential stressor from your life. Like, you don't want your dad laying in the hospital bed and you've got a legal fight too. Like, that is not what you want.
For sure. For sure. That's why, listen, the best time to plan is when you don't need things. That's the best time. And again, the problem with people, John, in general, is that we tend to be procrastinators and we tend to always think that there's going to be a tomorrow. And that tomorrow, unfortunately, sometimes for lots of people, never happen.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said we, because I definitely fall into that bucket way too often.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Well, if you remember when on a prior episode, John, when I talked about, when I had my heart attack, I was not in that situation. I was organized. So that's an example of when it's a good situation.
Yeah, and that was the first episode. So anyone listening today, go back and listen to that story. It's amazing. I think it'll give you a different perspective on all of this. And I wanted to go back to, you mentioned, choosing the right person to be your power of attorney. Tell me a little bit more about that. How do you go about choosing the right person for that role?
It can be hard. So I talk about this a lot. And again, I go back to my workshops, but I do a lot with the workshops. And so I tell people, listen, your family. You know who's good with financial issues, who's good with healthcare issues, who's not good with financial issues, who's not good with healthcare issues. That's what you got to think about. So when I talk about durable powers, we're dealing with financial concerns and making financial decisions. So who is it in your family that you feel is comfortable, that is responsible, to handle things, that is a good communicator is an issue, that follows through and follows rules and doesn't try to bend the rules because that can get them in trouble. So it's common sense things, but it's not. People don't think about that. I can tell you, I have 2 kids, okay? And they're both adults. They're young adults. And I have one kid in particular that I know for sure is more financially savvy than the other one. And I have another kid who's definitely much more caring and, regarding healthcare decisions, et cetera. And we kind of know who are going to be the people in charge. And the problem, here's where the problem comes, John, is when they don't have anyone. That's when it becomes a problem, and it's a real stretch. So if you don't have anybody, then who do you name? Well, you can look at your brothers, your sisters. Friends are good people to ask if you don't have kids that you feel comfortable with. Those are the kinds of things that people that you should be asking for. But again, you want to make sure you understand that this is a big responsibility, and you need to make sure that person is a responsible person and trustworthy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you're right, it is a big responsibility. And I'm curious to know, when you're giving these powers over, is it everything, or are there some powers you should reserve and never give up, or what does that look like?
I will tell you that my durable power of attorney that I draft, as an example, John, is 30 to 35 pages in length. It is a really thick document. Why is that? Because there's a lot of different powers that we need to officially have the person initial to give the agent or the attorney, in fact, the ability to handle things. So I wrote down a couple of things. If you forgive me for a second, let me find them real quick. Here's things that you should have them do. Handling bank accounts, obviously. Paying bills, having the ability to pay bills. Having the ability to manage investments, buying or selling property, filing taxes. Those are the kinds of things that you definitely want that durable power of attorney to be able to handle. And in Florida, it's also very, very important that you want to have them have the ability to be able to create legal documents for Medicaid planning. Okay, I've seen lots of durable powers that did not have the language in there to allow someone like me to be able, if someone is, let's say that the person needs to go into a nursing home or assisted living, and there's not the proper language, and they're disabled, and there's not language in the durable power to allow the attorney, in fact, to come to an attorney like me to fix things and to protect things, protect the income, protect the assets. So Medicaid, having the ability to handle Medicaid and to do Medicaid legal documents is a very important power in the durable power. Now, what's not something you should have in the durable power? You shouldn't have anything that can give the agent that you name, the ability to transfer your authority to another person. So you should be the one to be able to transfer it to whoever you want it to transfer. You shouldn't allow them to be able to amend, revoke documents upon your death. So it's one thing to do it while you're alive, but when you're dead, they shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't allow them to be able to have voting rights. They shouldn't vote for you. You don't want that. No. And then you don't want them making affidavits or statements of personal knowledge for you because you're disabled. So that gives you, I know we're running out of time, but that gives you an idea of what you should definitely have in there and some of the things you should not have in there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's extremely helpful to go over some of those. And normally, I would probably balk at a very long legal document, but in this case, I feel like that's a really good thing I want to have.
Yeah. I have seen durable powers done by do-it-yourselfers or whatever, or pulled off the internet that are like 2 pages. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's so many scenarios you have to account for. I do have a couple other just real quick questions. Can a bank or a financial institution refuse to honor a power of attorney, or do they have to legally, are they compelled to do that?
They're allowed to refuse, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, here's the catch. If they refuse, they have to refuse it in writing, and they have to give a reason as to what is the refusal process. And here's the other catch. If they're wrong or mistaken or screwed up, then they could be subject to the attorney's fees and other costs associated with someone fighting that. So they better be damn sure that they know why they're saying no to that power of attorney. And I'll give you an example. Why would they say no? Maybe they're questioning the execution of the document. Maybe it wasn't properly witnessed and notarized. Or maybe the person that signed it didn't have the authority or wasn't mentally capacitated to be able to do it at that time. So there's a couple of reasons why they wouldn't, but they better be careful about denying it.
Okay, so it sounds like legitimate reasons would be potentially allowed, but there's guardrails, so it's not just like the banks would just say no and go away.
For sure, definitely guardrails. Yep.
Yeah, and then the last question for today is: so like I live in Washington State. Let's say that I have all of my power of attorneys lined up. I move to Florida, or I go on vacation and I pass away in Florida. Let's say, just as an example, is my power of attorney still valid now that I'm in Florida?
So you touched 2 issues here. If you are in a different state and you have a durable power of attorney, it is valid. It is valid. Okay. However, if you move to another state and make that your residence, I highly recommend that you meet with an attorney in that state and have the documents changed to the state-specific law. So if you were in another state visiting, your power of attorney is definitely valid. If you move to another state, you should have a new power of attorney drawn up. But you said something at the end that we need to address real quick. If you die, the power of attorney ceases to exist. So what causes the power of attorney to no longer be valid? Death.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm still trying to get this clear in my head, so I really appreciate the distinctions you're making. Super helpful. Super fun to talk to you as well. Just thanks again for coming on today and just sharing all this super important information.
You're welcome. I hope this helps people. I'm just trying to help out there.
Absolutely. And if you're listening out there, don't wait until something happens to realize that you didn't give anyone the legal authority to help you. Visit rosenberglawfirm.net. Get the right power of attorney in place now. Your future self will thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.